Hello everyone, welcome to another tutorial. Here is everything you'll be needing to create this pattern. Just a couple quick notes. For the white yarn I'm using size 4 medium, and for the black yarn I'm using size 3 light. And the crochet hook we'll be using today is 4.5 millimeters. So feel free to pause here, gather all your materials before we begin. For this pattern, we're going to begin with a magic circle. So to do this, you're going to place your yarn at the 2 fingers mark, wrap it around your fingers to form an X, and then place the yarn parallel to each other and secure it with your other fingers. So this is how it looks like to begin. You're going to next take your hook. Make sure your hook is facing down. You're going to go under the first strand, hook onto the second, and gently pull it underneath that first strand. Then you're going to make a little twist like so, and now your hook should be facing up. Now with your hook facing up, we're going to go underneath this strand over here, hook that, and bring this strand of yarn into this loop. So I like to gently rotate my hook as we're going in, and then just looping it through that first loop. Now when you let go of your fingers, you should have a little circle like so. So I like to just pull this twisted yarn out and then pull this yarn to make the circle a little smaller, and that is your magic circle. So now we're going to single crochet 6 into the magic circle. So to do a single crochet, we're going to place our hook into the magic circle and bring this piece of yarn into the magic circle. So like that. And now you have 2 loops on your hook. Next, you're going to yarn over. So literally taking this piece of yarn that's attached to your bigger piece of yarn, you're just going to bring it over the hook like this, and then you're going to bring this piece of yarn into both loops. Like so. And that is 1 single crochet. So we're going to do this 5 more times until we have 6 single crochets in this magic circle. Once you have your 6 single crochets, it should look something like this. I'm just going to take my hook out, and now when you tug on this small piece of yarn, this gap over here should close. So we're just going to gently pull it and then bring this into a proper little circle. And now you're done with round 1. For round 2, we're going to increase 6 all around. So to do an increase, we're going to look for the next stitch. So if you look at your magic circle right now, you should see little V's or braids all around. Those are what we consider a stitch. So to do increase, we're essentially putting 2 single crochets into 1 stitch. So we're going to find our next stitch over here. We're going to go under both sides of the braids like so, and then we're going to yarn over once again, pull up a loop just as we did for our previous single crochets. We're going to yarn over and then pull it through both loops. So that is 1 single crochet. To do an increase, we're going to repeat exactly what we just did. So finding that same stitch that we just worked in, we're going to go under the 2 braids again, pull up a loop like so, yarn over, and pull into both loops. and that is one increase. Usually after the first stitch that I make, I like to place a stitch marker so that if I do, in the case, lose count, I still know exactly where the first stitch of this first round is. Now we're going to do 5 more increases all around. So once again, we're going to go into our next stitch over here, go underneath the 2 braids, pull up a loop like so, yarn over, and then pull through both loops. So that's 1 single crochet. Now we're going to do our second in the same stitch for an increase. So now we have 2 increases done. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of this round. For round 3, we're going to alternate between 1 single crochet and 1 increase all around. So finding our next stitch, in this one we're just going to do 1 single crochet. Like so. I'm going to place my stitch marker back in. And then on our next stitch, we are going to make an increase. So now we have our first combo, which is 1 single crochet and 1 increase. We're going to keep alternating until we reach the end of this round. For round 4, we are going to alternate between 2 single crochets and then 1 increase all around. So finding our next stitch here, we're going to single crochet. On our next one, we are also going to single crochet 1, and then on our third stitch, we are going to do an increase. So 1 single crochet, and then another single crochet into the same stitch. But I forgot to put my stitch marker, so reminder to put that in. If you did forget, you're just going to count back 4 stitches and place it in the 4th one. So these first 2 stitches are our regular single crochets, and then these last 2 stitches are our increase. So we're going to continue this combo all around until we reach back to our stitch marker. For round 5, it's also pretty straightforward, except this time the combo is 3 single crochets and then 1 increase. So we're going to do the first combo together as always. 1 single crochet. Don't forget to put your stitch marker back in. So now we have 3 single crochets. On our 4th stitch, we are going to make an increase. And that is our first finished combo. And now we're just going to rinse and repeat all the way around until we get back to our stitch marker. For round 6, hopefully I'm not sounding like a broken record now, we're going to do another combo, but this time we're doing 4 single crochets and then 1 increase. So let's go ahead and do our first 4 single crochets. Once you have your 4 single crochets, we're now going to make our first increase. And now we have our first combo finished. So once again, we'll repeat this all around until we reach our last stitch. For round 7, we are approaching our very last combo round. So for this last one, we're going to be doing 5 single crochets and then we're going to be doing 5 single crochets and then 1 increase. So let's go ahead and do our first 5 single crochets. Once you have your first 5, we're going to do our increase in our 6th stitch. And there is our first completed combo. So one last time, we're going to be repeating this combo all the way around until we finish this round. And now for round 8, our final round of the head or coaster portion of this pattern, we are just simply going to single crochet all around. No more combos, no more increases, just 1 single crochet per stitch. Alright, now let's get started with the ears. So since this pattern is technically no sew other than the face, it will get a little bit more tricky than our previous circles and repeats, but it's still very beginner friendly, and I will walk you through the whole thing. So let's start by removing our stitch marker. In our next stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch. So to do a slip stitch, you're going to go underneath that stitch as always, pull up a loop like so, but now instead of yarning over, we're going to bring this loop that you just pulled up straight into our last loop, like so. So that is your slip stitch. Next, we're going to chain 9. So to do a chain, we're going to yarn over like this, and then bring this piece of yarn into our only loop on our hook. And that is 1 chain. So we're going to do this 8 more times until we get a total of 9 chains. For round 2 of the ears, you're going to skip 2 chains and single crochet 6 down your chain of 9. So the first chain is the one that is currently attached to your hook, so we're going to count that as number 1, and then the chain after that would be number 2. So we're going to skip these 2 chains and single crochet into the 3rd stitch. So we're going to go in between the 2 braids, like so, and then we're just going to single crochet as we have been. So pull up a loop like so, yarn over, and bring into both loops. So that is your first single crochet on this chain. We're going to do that 5 more times to get a total of 6 single crochets in this chain. Next, you'll notice that we still have one more open chain here. That's because we skipped 2, we single crocheted 6 into the 6 chains, so now we're left with one more chain that we have not used yet. So in this last chain, we're going to single crochet 2 into this stitch. So finding that last chain, once again going into the middle of the braids, we're going to create 2 single crochets. Now we're going to secure this side of the ear with a slip stitch. So to do this, we're going to actually rotate our project so that you're making sure this ear is facing you. Now you're going to find the last stitch that's still attached to the head of your project. Typically it's easy to spot because you can see that gaping hole right there, but essentially you want to stitch into the stitch that created this chain. So we're going to place our hook inside this loop, this stitch. We're going to pull up a piece of yarn from the back, like so. So now you have 2 loops on your hook, and we're just going to bring this loop into this loop to make a slip stitch. Alright, now that you're done with the previous round, I know it was probably a little bit tricky, but that's probably the hardest this whole pattern will get. We are now going to do our double crochets up this chain. So to do a double crochet, you're going to first yarn over, and then you're going to place your hook into the stitch, and you're going to pull up a loop as normal, like so. Now you're going to yarn over, but this time you're only going to pull this piece of yarn into the first 2 loops, like so. And now you're left with 2 loops remaining on your hook. You're going to yarn over again and then finally pull it through everything. So we're going to continue doing the double crochet. We're going to do it 5 more times until we reach stitch number 6. For the last round of the ears, we are going to start with 2 chains. So to chain, we're going to yarn over and then pull this loop into our second loop. So that's 1 chain. We're going to do that once more. Now we have 2 chains. So once you've done your 2 chains, we're going to single crochet 6 back down this side. So we're going to find our next braid over here, go underneath both sides of the braid, pull up a loop, yarn over, and into both loops. So that's 1 single crochet. We're going to do this 5 more times until we reach our 6th stitch. And now lastly, to secure this ear onto the body or head of our coaster, we're going to find the next 2 stitches of the actual body. So we're currently working into this one right now. We're going to find our next one, skip this one, and then slip stitch into this one. So we're now going to locate that stitch we're going to place our hook underneath that 2 braids, pull up a loop like so, and then drag it into the loop on our hook. Next, we're going to repeat rounds 1 to 5 to make the second ear, but before we do that, we actually want to slip stitch one more so that there's a small gap between the 2 ears. So you're going to find your next stitch over here and just do another slip stitch. So pull up a loop and then directly bring that loop in, like so. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat rounds 1 to 5, and I'll meet you when we have our 2 ears done. Once you're done with both ears, you're going to fasten off. So I'm going to remove my hook, and then you're just going to go ahead and cut this. The way I typically like to fasten off my projects is by looping it through a couple times. So I'm going to bring my hook into the next stitch and just pull the strand of yarn through like so, and then do it a couple more times. I think that's good enough actually. And then I like to make a knot. And then cut it. I typically don't cut it too close to the knot, otherwise there's a higher chance of it unraveling, so I do leave a slight tail like this. Then I just kind of push it in and tuck it in. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Cut and just hide it in. To sew on the face, I'm using a slightly thinner black yarn. This is the brand that I'm using, and it is in number 3 light. But feel free to just use any regular black yarn or black thread. You're going to take your darning needle, just loop that through. So, and I like to place my eyes on the second row. So if you look in the center, you have your magic circle here, and then you have 1, 2. I like to place it right here on the second row, starting from the middle of this circle. But feel free to play around with your project to see where you like your eyes, where you like your mouth. But for my pattern, I'm going in with the second row over here. So we're going to start where the top of the eyes are going to be. So for me, that's about right here. You're going to pull your black string all the way in until about this much, give or take. Next, you're going to point your needle where you want your eyes to finish. So I want the bottom of my eyes to be right here. And you're going to pull that through as well. And that is your first eye. So for my eyes, I like to double knot it, just to make it a little thicker. So I'm going to go in once again, the same process. And then back in, like so. I like to stretch out both sides a little bit, just so it makes the eyes a little more oval, if you know what I mean. And there's my first eye. So for my second eye, I'm going to point it on this side and start from the top once again. So over here, or actually 2 over, so that's actually here. Like this. You don't want to pull too tight. You want to have some bit of space, because if you pull it too tight, this eye will pretty much sink in. And then you're going to point it to the bottom of your eyes, like so. And let's do that one more time for good measure. Alrighty, now that you have your two eyes, we're now going to make the Miffy X mouth. So we're going to start at the far left corner of the mouth. So where I like to position my mouth is one row down. So from here to here and here to here. So I'm going to point it to where I want the top left corner of the mouth to be. Right here. Just gently pull. So this is how my back currently looks like. And then I'm going to go diagonally into the bottom right corner to make it diagonal like so. Now I'm going to place it onto the top right corner. And then lastly, bring it into the bottom left. Once you have everything nice and secured, you are now officially done with this pattern. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. If not, let me know in the comments if you have any questions, concerns, feedback for how I can better create crochet tutorials that are good for beginners in the future. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.